Terminator Salvation, aka the Terminator movie set entirely in the future war with the machines, aka the one without Arnie, aka the movie that made Christian Bale lose his frickin' mind.
No! No! Don't shut me up! Da-da-da-da like this in the background.
In this movie where we follow a convict called Marcus, who was executed on death row in 2003, but wakes up in the war against the machines, where it's discovered he's a Terminator hybrid, in some scheme of Skynet's to have John Connor lured into a trap or something. All while, Connor, played by Bale, spends most of the movie looking about as happy as someone filing out their taxes. But the big question is there any love at all to be found in Terminator Salvation? Well, I think there is. So it's time to explore the fourth installment in the Terminator series. And oh boy, the behind the scenes for this one are insane. It has it all, from drastic rewrites to mental breakdowns, limbs nearly being blown off, and even, sadly, people dying. So let's check out 10 things that you didn't know about Terminator Salvation. Number 10. Project Angel. The lead up to the creation of Terminator Salvation goes all the way back to 1999. The production company C2 bought the rights to the Terminator brand. C2 was a production company founded by movie producers Andrew G. Vajna and Mario Kassar, who incidentally also produced Terminator 2. The plan was to make 2 Terminator movies back to back, with the 3rd Terminator movie focusing on the day the machines strike out against the humans, and the 4th Terminator movie to focus on the war against the machines as previously seen at the start of all the Terminator movies. Warner Brothers was set to distribute Terminator 3 and 4, with this epic movie project getting the name Project Angel. Warner Brothers and C2 would successfully produce Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, however, the 4th movie wouldn't quite go to plan. Number 9. The Terminator 4 Exodus. So many of the major team players from Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines were originally on board to return for a 4th Terminator movie, including director Jonathan Mostow, as well as Nick Stahl and Claire Danes, who played John Connor and Kate Brewster in Terminator 3. And it was also expected that Arnold Schwarzenegger would be back in some capacity, be that a limited role, due to him being the Californian governator at that time. However, come 2005, 2 years after the release of Terminator 3, Terminator 4 still wasn't any closer to moving forward, and Nick Stahl and Claire Danes were out, as was Arnie and director Jonathan Mostow. According to Stahl, him and Danes were not returning due to the story of the 4th movie now taking place many years after Rise of the Machines. But, I don't know, I think they still could have made the actors look older, but whatever, I didn't think they had particularly good chemistry anyway. And it's also been suggested that Claire Danes didn't want to return due to all the stress from making the 3rd movie. However, Terminator 3 scriptwriters John Brancato and Michael Ferris would stay on board to see the project through. But there were still plenty of surprises round the corner. Number 8. Then the production company collapsed. So the production company C2 eventually dissolved, with Basic Instinct 2 being the company's last commercial film. According to Wikipedia, feuds between Mario Kassar and Andrew Vajna got in the way of the company moving forward. So MGM then got involved because the company owned another company called Hendale Film Corporation, which owned the rights to the original Terminator movie. So MGM decided that they were going to make a Terminator 4. However, a company called the Halcyon Company also purchased the rights of Terminator. In fact, the company was created purely to make more Terminator content. This led to a lawsuit between MGM and the Halcyon Company over which company can make a 4th Terminator film, of which a settlement was reached, in which MGM could have the option to make a 5th Terminator movie. both Warner Brothers and Sony would end up buying shares in this new Terminator installment, with Warner Brothers distributing Terminator Salvation in the States, and Sony Pictures, which would release the movie internationally, which is actually exactly the same way the third Terminator movie was released. Needless to say, Terminator Salvation was not an easy movie to get off the ground, as it was absolutely a legal cluster. Number 7. The start of a new trilogy. Despite being a continuation of the first 3 Terminator movies, Terminator Salvation also had the task of being the first entry of a new trilogy. A series of new films which weren't going to be on-the-road chase movies like the first 3 Terminator films, but a new series focusing on the future war against the machines, which I'm guessing would have concluded with John Connor rising and becoming the leader of the Resistance as prophesized. Director of the Charlie's Angels movies from the early 2000s, McG came on board as director, but he had great trepidation in doing so he met up with the father of the Terminator franchise, James Cameron, in order to get some advice, as McG was cautious of, quote, flogging a dead horse. I think it's a bold and brave choice to have the movie revolve entirely around the future war against the machines. It also had its own look and style, of which I've heard several people say that with Terminator Salvation, they went more for a Mad Max Apocalypse Wasteland look. And yeah, I'll agree with that. Interestingly, every Terminator movie that has come out since Salvation has also promised to be the start of a new Terminator trilogy. It never works, as they just can't seem to get it right. And while all this was going on, the Terminator brand wasn't entirely dormant, as there was the Terminator TV show, Terminator, The Sarah Connor Chronicles. But as that show went on, it too would have its own problems, particularly with waning viewership, but that's a story for another time. Regardless though, it is interesting that there were 2 different Terminator timelines going on at the same time. Number 6. Script changes to accommodate Christian Bale. Supposedly, in the original script of Terminator Salvation, the character John Connor only shows up at the very end of the movie, with Salvation focusing more on Marcus, young Kyle Reese, and Star. Now, something you have to realise is at that time, Christian Bale was huge and was on top of the world thanks to previously starring as Batman in The Dark Knight, which was the biggest movie of 2008, and the production really wanted Bale on board to star as Marcus, the human Terminator hybrid experiment. However, Bale really did not want to star in the movie, despite being asked several times. He didn't think that the director, McG, was up to the challenge of directing a Terminator movie, telling him, quote, "Nothing in your filmography suggests that you have what it takes to do this movie properly." Damn, just say what you think, why don't you? However, McG somehow did eventually convince Bale to star in the movie. Somehow, I don't know how, he just did. However, Bale didn't want to star as Marcus, but as John Connor himself, so drastic changes were made to the script in order to make John Connor a prominent feature in the movie. Sadly though, it would appear that Bale would go on to regret working on Terminator Salvation, and doesn't think highly of the movie, and doesn't wish to work with McG again. Number 5. Casting possibilities. When it came to the character of Marcus Wright, a convict from the past who wakes up in a new future to learn that he is half Terminator, other than Christian Bale, other actors considered for the part include Daniel Day-Lewis and Josh Brolin. In fact, Brolin read for the part. Sam Worthington was recommended to McG by James Cameron, who had just worked with him on Avatar, and so Worthington was cast. And Worthington just doesn't do it for me in Terminator Salvation. He kind of spends the movie with this blank stare and monotone voice. I honestly find him kind of boring, and he shouldn't be boring. He's a Terminator human hybrid. It's like, dude, you've just woken up in a future apocalyptic world where there's deadly robots, only to discover you're one of them yourself. Try to look at least a bit shocked or interested. Look, I'm not saying Worthington was bad, he just wasn't my cup of tea. When it came to Dr. Serena Corgan, aka the face of Skynet. Tilda Swinton was the original choice, but the part went to fellow British lady Helena Bonham Carter. And I'm guessing because Terminator Salvation starred Tim Burton's wife at the time, it also featured the music of Tim Burton's friend, Danny Elfman, who scored the movie. Which is interesting, as I never would have imagined Elfman to score a Terminator film. But here we are, and his music is fine, and does go with the Terminator universe. Bryce Dallas Howard replaced Claire Danes as Kate Brewster. The tragically died before his time Anton Yelchin was cast as Kyle Reese, who definitely was a highlight of Terminator Salvation, and actually gives a much better performance than both Christian Bale and Sam Worthington. Moon Bloodgood was cast as Resistance pilot Blair Williams. The rapper Common starred as John's most supportive ally Barnes, and movie legend Michael Ironside as General Ashdown. I guess Arnie won't be seeing him at this party. Original Sarah Connor actress Linda Hamilton provided some dialogue in the form of audio recordings that the character left for John in the future. Even though she was uncredited, it's nice hearing her voice for, if anything, continuity. And finally, the T-800 was played by Austrian bodybuilder Roland Kickinger, who previously played Arnold Schwarzenegger in a made-for-TV movie called See Arnold Run. And of course, Arnie's likeness was digitally added, but sadly this was the late 2000s, so it still looks quite animated. I think if it was made these days, they would probably just deep fake Arnie's face. Number 4. Script debacle. So as mentioned, the script for Terminator Salvation was originally written by John Brancato and Michael Ferris, whom previously wrote the script for Terminator 3, and they are credited as the sole writers of Terminator Salvation. However, it's a lot more complicated than that. Paul Haggis was brought on board to make rewrites. Not only did he write the scripts for $1 Million Baby and Crash, but he was also known as something of a script doctor, known for making scripts better, as he had done with Casino Royale. But it seems that the powers that be still weren't happy with the script, so scriptwriter Sean Ryan was then hired to make more rewrites, just mere weeks before the shoot was to start, and he had great success on TV, creating the show The Shield. However, it was felt that during the filming, the script was still needing improvement, so Jonathan Nolan, the brother of Christopher Nolan, was brought in the set to improve the script and make rewrites, as the movie was being filmed. And he previously co-wrote the script for The Dark Knight, so it seemed that the script for Salvation was now in good hands, except for one major problem. The 2008 writers' strike happened, and so Nolan had to leave. Christian Bale felt that Nolan had a wonderful story and great ideas for Terminator Salvation, but he couldn't really use them, as he had to leave the production, and so many of these wonderful ideas couldn't be used. However, CSI writer Anthony Zucker would then come on board to make even more rewrites. One major criticism Terminator Salvation received was for its storytelling and its story structure. And when you learn what a chaotic mess the script for Terminator Salvation was, it actually makes a lot of sense. Number 3. Tragedy and turmoil on set. Filming for Terminator Salvation started in May 2008, with the shoot mainly taking place in New Mexico, with the shoot lasting 77 days. And to say that this was a troubled production would be putting it mildly. Now, there already was tons of pressure and tension within the production, as the budget was $200 million, which was astronomical for its time, making it the most expensive Terminator movie. But there was also a string of unfortunate occurrences that would happen on set, and, for that matter, off the set too. Sam Worthington tore his intercostal muscles, as well as injuring his back. Christian Bale broke his hand. Shortly before filming, Michael Ironside broke 3 vertebrae, and because of this, his character could never be seen to be sitting down, due to the intense pain Ironside would experience from sitting. And a special effects technician almost literally had one of his legs blown off from filming an explosion, of which part of his leg actually was severed. Oh boy, and it only gets worse from here, as movie makeup effects wizard Stan Winston died at the time of the shoot of Terminator Salvation, making this the last movie that he himself worked on. And filming had to be put on hold as Helena Bonham Carter lost 4 members of her family due to a minibus accident in South Africa. Look, they say movies like Apocalypse Now and The Wizard of Oz had cursed sets that were full of problems, but when you think about it, Terminator Salvation is definitely a contender for joining that list. But oh boy, things are about to get even crazier. Number 2, Christian Bale loses his freaking mind. So shortly before the release of Terminator Salvation, a leaked audio recording of Christian Bale going into an explosive tirade on set while filming Terminator Salvation started circulating online, becoming huge news at the time, with many people shocked by Bale's anger and verbal abuse heard in the leaked recording, along with the 39 uses of the F-bomb.
What the f*** are you doing? I want you off the f***ing set, you prick!
Now this happened in the wake of another incident, in which while on tour promoting The Dark Knight, Bale got into a verbal altercation with his mother and sister, in which a complaint was made to the authorities but charges were dropped. This had many people wondering if Bale was Batman or Bashman. So Bale's angry Terminator Salvation tirade took place because while filming a scene, cinematographer Shane Hurlbut walked on the set right in the camera's view to check on the lights on the set, and thus making the take unusable. And supposedly this happened several times until Bale just completely lost his shit at Hurlbut.
Now don't just be sorry, think for one f***ing second. Are you professional or not?
I think Bale is a method actor and was really putting all his intensity and acting into the role. And I'm guessing it was frustrating for him having some dopey member of the crew repeatedly stumbling onto the set to check up on lighting while he's emoting all that acting and giving it his all. I don't even think that was Bale ranting, but Bale as John Connor. After all, Bale was yelling in his John Connor accent and not his natural Welsh accent.
No! No! Don't shut me up!
But regardless, there's no excuses, Bale was still out of line, no matter what the reason is for him freaking out. There's always a right and wrong way of doing things, and Bale did publicly apologise for his behaviour and say that him and Hurlbut were on good terms. But, you know, the damage was done. The leaked audio still generated a heap of controversy and really overshadowed the film, leaving Terminator Salvation with a dark cloud hanging over it. It's never been revealed who leaked it, but I remember at the time there were rumours that it was a member of the crew, as they felt that Terminator Salvation would be poorly received, and so this was a way of putting the blame on Bale. I guess a sort of way of saying, well, yeah, of course we were going to fail, look at what we had to deal with here.
Oh, good for you! And how was it?
In fact, there are actually several online leaks when it comes to Terminator Salvation, as the script of the original ending was also leaked online, to which the ending had to be changed and refilmed because of these leaks. Seriously, who was leaking all this stuff? Oh, and this original ending sees John Connor die, but his skin is placed over the endoskeleton of Marcus so the image of Connor can live on, and then Marcus kills Kate Brewster, Kyle Reese, and Starr, in a plot twist where, well, Skynet wins. Wow, that sounds terrible. Just imagine the outrage that would have caused to the Terminator fandom. And if things couldn't get any worse, it was decided to give Terminator Salvation a PG-13 rating, now taking away the edge of the franchise, which, yes, even the third one had. Speaking of deleted material, there's some behind-the-scene photos and concept pictures of the Dr. Corgan character, looking different to how she looked in the movie, where she looks more glammed up, almost with a Marilyn Monroe style going on. However, I don't know if this is from a deleted scene, or potential costume tests, or if Helena Bonham Carter was just taking some glamour shots on set. Number 1. Everything and the kitchen sink went into promoting Terminator Salvation. So the studio really wanted it out there that Terminator Salvation is here, and it's here in a big and spectacular way, where the marketing would see a tie-in Terminator Salvation video game, Terminator Salvation action figures, Terminator Salvation comic book, a tie-in Terminator Salvation theme park ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and a Terminator Salvation animated web series, as well as Terminator Salvation being advertised on a Formula 1 car. Terminator Salvation was finally released on the 21st of May 2009, released just over 1 month after the last episode of the Sarah Chronicles being broadcast. and it would go on to make $371 million on its $200 million budget, with it becoming the 14th highest grossing movie of 2009. But despite this, it still didn't bring in the numbers as anticipated, with it being a big drop from Terminator 3's box office earnings of $433 million. And it got pretty lousy reviews and feedbacks from both critics and fans alike. And look, I remember at the time, there was this general attitude that the series should have just stopped at Terminator 2 and that Terminator 3 and Salvation were just unnecessary. And so Salvation's failings would lead to sequels which would ignore it, as if it's no longer lore. Not once, but twice, with both attempts being immensely worse than Salvation. Heck, Salvation is probably Citizen Kane in comparison. Look, I have my own thoughts and feelings on Salvation. My biggest issue with it is, I don't particularly find it interesting. Whenever I watch it, I do struggle to give it all my attention, because I do often zone out of it. I think it just needed that extra wow factor, and I thought the story of an ex-convict being executed in 2003 only to wake up in the future as a half-Terminator in some scheme to unknowingly have John Connor killed felt convoluted and requires leaps and bounds in logic. I don't even know why the movie is called Terminator Salvation. What is the salvation? Who is the salvation? Is it John Connor? Is it Marcus? Is it Kyle Reese? Then there's the issue of Sam Worthington, with me finding him bland as mentioned, and even Christian Bale seems miserable and like he would literally rather be anywhere else. Yeah, I know he's supposed to be a hardened war soldier, but I just feel like it really shows that Bale did not want to star in the movie, in my opinion. But I have to admit it, I don't hate Salvation. I think, like with so many other people, it's a movie I've come to appreciate more in time. As many others have also said, I do appreciate that it went into a different direction other than a cyborg arriving from the future in a car chase movie. Salvation looks and feels very different to the previous movies, and it reminds us that the machines are vicious, brutal killers, not just Arnie doing weird, funny, comical things, which I think is what happened in the series. It became a sort of, let's wait for Arnie to do a funny, awkward thing. Nope, the machines here aren't here to be funny, but to kill everyone on sight. It also moves the story forward, unlike so many other continuation attempts, which have to go back to being, quote, true sequels to Terminator 2. Nope, Salvation keeps the story going forward and takes it into new territories. So I think Salvation has some good ideas, visuals, and set pieces. But I do also see it as a tragic movie, as I do believe that it had great potential. But it was let down by a plethora of issues behind the scenes. In fact, it's kind of a miracle we got a coherent movie at all, considering everything that Salvation was up against. So I think it's a fun B-movie romp that could have been better. But you know, we can still get enjoyment out of it. It's still infinitely better than anything that came after it. Some may even say it's the best Terminator product since Terminator 2, and I think that would be a fair argument. So Salvation isn't a bad film. In fact, you could probably argue it's a pretty good film. It's just an action spectacle, which sadly got affected by behind-the-scenes problems and issues. I think in my own personal Terminator universe, there's only 1 and 2. But if I was feeling really charitable and just really needed more Terminator content, then I could add in Terminator 3 and Salvation. However, Genesis and Dark Moon, or whatever it was called, no way. Anyway, I'm Minty, and remember kiddies, try to not verbally abuse the lighting guy when you make a movie, even if he is being a plonker and walking into the frame. Trust me, it's not worth the leaks. See ya!